So, what do you do when your entire economy, your food, your whole way of life is on the absolute front lines of climate change? How do you even begin to fight back? Well, for the island nation of Vanuatu, the answer isn't just about building higher walls, it's about building smarter farms. Let's really dig into the story. All right, so here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll get a real sense of the climate challenge Vanuatu is up against. Then we'll look at the brilliant plan they've put in place, dive into the data that's driving it, check out some really cool tools they're using, and finally, see how it all comes together to, well, farm the future.
Okay, so to really get why their solution is so smart, you first have to understand the incredible scale of the problem. I mean, for Vanuatu, climate change isn't some abstract concept. For them, it is a clear and present danger.
And look, this isn't a what-if scenario. What you're seeing here is the real-deal aftermath of Tropical Cyclone Harold back in 2020. Sadly, images like this are becoming a recurring nightmare for them. These powerful cyclones are hitting the islands harder and more often, just tearing apart buildings, lives, and livelihoods. 64%. Now, get this. This number is, well, it's just staggering. When Tropical Cyclone Pam slammed into Vanuatu in 2015, the economic damage was equal to 64% of the entire country's GDP for that year. I mean, can you even imagine that? A single storm wiping out almost 2/3 of a nation's economy in one go? So you might be asking, why is the impact so catastrophic? Well, it's because their economy is incredibly vulnerable. We're talking about a place where roughly 2/3 of the population relies on agriculture to live. So when a storm like Cyclone Pam comes through and messes with the livelihoods of 80% of the rural population, or when Cyclone Harold destroys over 200,000 plants, it's not just an economic hit, it's a direct threat to their food security. The bottom line, doing nothing was simply not an option.
So, how do you respond to something like that? Faced with what is, let's be honest, an existential threat, Vanuatu and its partners decided they weren't just going to rebuild what was lost. Nope, they were going to build resilience right from the ground up.
And this quote right here from the Green Climate Fund really nails the new strategy. It's all about a paradigm shift. You see, the old way of doing things was just reacting to disasters after they hit. The new plan? It's all about using science and data proactively to get ahead of the curve, to adapt before the storm even forms. And this plan has a name. It's called the Van-KIRAP project. In the local Bislama language, that translates to Vanuatu Klaemet Infomesen to redy, adapt, and protect. I mean, the name pretty much says it all, doesn't it? And you should know, this was no small-time operation. This is a massive international team effort. You've got the Green Climate Funds providing the funding, SPREP, which is the big regional environment program handling the accreditation, and then the team on the ground, the real heroes, at the Vanuatu Meteorology and Geohazards Department, or VMGD, making it all happen. Okay, so how does a project like this actually work? Well, it all boils down to one core idea, taking super complex global climate data and turning it into simple, local, actionable wisdom. The official name for this is Climate Information Services, or CIS for short. But really, don't get bogged down in the jargon. All it means is getting the right climate info to the right people at the right time, so they can make better decisions to protect themselves. Simple as that. Yeah, think about it like this. You can have the most powerful supercomputer in the world running a global climate model, right? But that is completely useless to a local farmer who just needs to know when to plant her yams. The whole goal here is to bridge that enormous gap. And the need for this was and is incredibly urgent. See, there is a ton of amazing climate science out there, but it just wasn't being used on the ground. And at the same time, you have generations of traditional knowledge, which is absolutely vital, but even that is being pushed to its limits because the climate is changing faster than ever before. So everyone, from a government minister in an office to a farmer in a field, needed practical guidance they could actually use. So the big question is, how do you actually make all that data usable for everyday people? The answer? You build tools. And that's exactly what Van-KIRAP did. They created some amazing tools to translate all that dense, complicated data into something tangible. All right, first up, we have the Vanuatu Climate Futures Portal. Now, this is the big picture tool. Think of it as a kind of crystal ball for planners and policymakers, letting them peek into the future. And this is where it gets really powerful. The portal makes the future tangible. So a user can go in and ask a specific question like, hey, what's going to happen to coffee farming on the island of Tana? And bam, the portal shows you. By 2039, the map shows plenty of suitable growing areas in green. But then you jump forward to 2099, assuming a high emission scenario, and those green areas have almost completely vanished. All of a sudden, a vague long-term threat becomes a very specific, very local problem you can actually plan for today.
Okay, so that's the big picture tool. The next key tool brings things down to an even more practical, boots-on-the-ground level, especially for farmers. It's called the Oscar system.
So what is Oscar? Well, at its heart, it's a dashboard. It takes all of that complicated climate data and boils it down into things that matter for farming. You know, stuff like heat stress, temperature, rainfall, and it lays it all out visually on a map of Vanuatu. But here's the really brilliant part. An individual farmer doesn't have to look at that complex dashboard. Nope. The Oscar system does all the heavy lifting and automatically spits out this, the Agromet Bulletin. It's a simple, easy-to-read summary with advice tailored specifically for them. So this bulletin is basically a monthly climate update that goes straight to the farmers. It helps them manage their risks, it might give them a heads up to expect drier conditions, or maybe it'll suggest the perfect time to plant a certain crop. It is that final, absolutely crucial step that turns all that data into an actual decision someone can make. Okay, so we've seen the data and the tools, but what does all of this actually mean on the ground for real people? Let's follow the entire journey, from a satellite orbiting in space all the way down to a single seed being planted in the soil to see the real-world impact. It really breaks down into a clear chain of events. Step 1, massive amounts of climate data get processed. Step 2, tools like the Climate Portal and Oscar make that data understandable. Step 3, farmers get that tailored advice right in their hands through the Agromet bulletins. Step 4, armed with that knowledge, they can make much smarter decisions about what to plant, where to plant it, and when. And the final critical step? The result of all this is a more resilient, more secure food system for the entire nation. You know, when you really look at it, this is so much more than just a fancy weather forecast. This is a nation standing on the absolute front line of climate change, methodically building a system to strengthen its ability to adapt, to protect its economy, and to secure the one thing that matters most, its food supply. And all of this leaves us with one final, really important question to think about. What Vanuatu has done here is create a powerful model for turning overwhelming global data into empowering local wisdom. So could this be the key? Not just for them, but for helping vulnerable communities all over the world build the resilience they so desperately need.